It's Autumn. I'm here today. I really just wanted to talk about birth plans. So, when I went to nursing school, um, every single mother, which I saw about 6 vaginal births and 4 C-sections, and every single mom that I talked to at that baby factory, which is not a good term, that I had my clinicals at, nobody had a birth plan. And you'd be shocked and surprised about how many women, how many people go through all their prenatal appointments, have actually seen the doctor or a midwife or a nurse practitioner, anything several times, and were never counseled on a birth plan. And I absolutely love the idea of birth plans. So that's what I wanted to discuss today. I mean, what is a birth plan really? It's really like, what do you want to happen at your birth? There's so many things that you obviously can't control, but a birth plan is to discuss the things that you can control. I think that a birth plan is important because if something does happen during your birth, or something unexpected happens, you've already thought about pretty much all aspects of your birth, so you don't have to be surprised, or you're not taken for surprise about what you want, or, oh, I never considered this, oh, I never thought about this, because there is a possibility that they could ask several questions. And I don't just mean in an emergent situation, but you don't want it to be when you're going to give birth and somebody asks you about pain management and you're like, I absolutely haven't thought about pain management at all, or things like that. So let's really just get into it. So like I said, a birth plan, you want to let people know, whoever it is, whether you go with a midwife, whether you go with a nurse practitioner, whether you go with a doctor, or I should say everyone, even your nurse at the time, your doctor, your midwife, whoever's part of your birth team, they should all know what your birth plan is. You really develop it over time. It's not something that you have to sit down necessarily and say, okay, what's this, what's this, what's this, what's that. Honestly, I really think that it's something that you should actually curate with your provider. So my future patients it's going to be a conversation. Well, what are some things that you've been thinking about? Or I might ask a question based off of something that I've heard during the history review. So, first things first, where do you even want to give birth? Do you want a home birth? Do you want to be in a birth center? Do you want to be in a hospital? Do you want to be in a birth center that's attached to a hospital? Do you want to be in a standalone? There's so many different options and so many different places that you can actually give birth. So many people think that you can only give birth in the hospital, but that's not the case. So you definitely want to figure out, where do you want to give birth? Who do you want to be in the room when you're giving birth? This is so important. This is so important because you're going to need that support this is pre-COVID, I'm thinking, and hopefully sometime post-COVID when it's a little bit more normalized and things start kind of going back to the way that they were, because that's a whole separate video about how births went during COVID. I'm definitely going to talk about it. Definitely want to interview a couple people about it. But who do you want in the room? In a situation where, and this is my dog trying to eat stuff while I'm trying to record. Okay, who do you want in the room with you? Do you want just your husband, your significant other? Do you want just your mom? Who do you want? Some people are nervous about telling people that they can't be in the birth room, but the birth itself is such an emotional journey. You have every right to want to protect yourself and your newborn during that time. So really think about who you want in the room with you, especially because when the rest of your care team knows who you want in the room, it becomes their job too to make sure only those people are in the room. So it takes one less thing off your plate. You don't have to worry about, oh, somebody's just walking in. No, we definitely know how to ask. Who are you? What's your relationship? What's going on? Actually, we're not having visitors. We got your back. We'll say whatever we need to say to make sure things go your way. What else? Okay, what would you do, or what would you want to do in a situation where you may need not necessarily emergent services, but like if you needed forceps for your delivery or a vacuum assisted birth? Would anything about who you want in the room change? Would you want additional people in the room? Anything like that? Is that a situation where, maybe you absolutely want to wait until the last possible moment before you decide to use forceps or decide to use a vacuum delivery? Or do you want to be offered those things sooner or later? That's really the biggest thing that you kind of have to think about in this situation. Do you want to wait it out and see what happens, or is it okay for us to move forward, as we see fit as care providers? But again, that's something that's up to you. A lot of times women and others, they think that, these people know more than I do, but we don't know your body. We may know what's going on in your body. We may know what we can see is happening, but we're not you, and we can't feel what you feel, and we don't know. We don't have that intuition, that gut feeling. So we are counting on you to be active participants with us. That's the whole thing about this birth plan process. We want you to be an active participant. You definitely deserve to be actively participating in your child's birth. So don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. Have you thought about if there's a possibility that you may need a C-section? Under what circumstances are you willing to have a C-section? Sometimes they may say, oh, baby's heart rate is dropping, or we're seeing this on the monitors, or we're seeing that. If you're hooked up to monitors, for example. This is just what I've seen during my clinical time. Do you want to try repositioning first? Sometimes I feel, again, don't take anything I say as law, but sometimes I feel it's easier for providers to say, oh, let's just have a C-section, because you get way more control with the C-section. You can literally say, this is how it's going to go. Boom, bam, thank you, ma'am. So yeah, if a C-section is necessary, under what circumstances are you willing to have a C-section if it's not obviously an emergent situation? And is that emergent situation truly emergent? That's something to consider and something to think about. Another thing that you could talk about is definitely, what do you want to be doing? What do you want to be doing during your birthing process? Some people just want to sit on the bed. I encourage movement, definitely 110%. I'm going to encourage movement. But if you are overwhelmed by pain, maybe you can't move as much as you would like to. But do you want your birth team to encourage you to move? Are you somebody who wants to meditate from within until you like it quiet and less interruptions? That's definitely something you want to mention in your birth plan, because day of, or when you're in active labor, this is something that you can have them reference to, and you won't get those people coming in, oh, can I check you? Oh, can I check you? Oh, can I check you? Or, bothering you, if it is something that you want to meditate through and try some deep breathing through and things like that. Other things that you could be thinking about: do you want equipment? Like, do you want a birthing ball? Do you want a birthing, like a birth bath if you're at home? Or do you want a water birth? Because some of these new birthing suites in the hospitals, they have the birthing pools also, depending on where you go. Do you want to have a mirror present? Some people like the idea of the mirror, being able to see all parts. Do you want to stay in the same position? Again, I don't personally, I'm not a proponent of that, staying in one position. I'm all about find a position that helps baby come down and keep on coming down to their out with minimal, obviously considering the situation, but minimal discomfort to you as mom. you as a birthing person should definitely know, okay, I feel like I do better with a couple of pushes here, but can we try something else? You have to, be comfortable saying that. And if you're one of those people who are not comfortable saying that, the birthing plan would really save you all the time and trouble, because then your birth team, your care team knows to encourage you. Oh, let's try this. This isn't working. Oh, let's try this. Oh, you've done really good in this position. Let's see what we can do with a couple more good deep pushes. What else? Do you want your partner or your support person to deliver your baby if the situation allows it? That's definitely something that you should decide prior to anything going on birthdays. You definitely want to know who is delivering your baby. You're laboring and you're working and you're pushing, but do you want your support person to have an active role also? So you can discuss that. I'm trying to think of active labor. There's a couple more things. Again, you want to curate this list with your provider, whoever you're using, your midwife, whoever. But these are just some hot topics that I'm thinking of. Another one that I'm thinking of, what about the people in the room as far as your care team? Some places are what they call teaching hospitals or teaching facilities. That means that students could be present. Do you want to, and if you're choosing this teaching facility and students are present, how many students? Maybe you just want one student. Maybe you want a student nurse, or maybe you only want a student doctor and you don't want the student nurse. It's okay for you to say who you want in the room and who you don't want in the room. But you do have to understand that in teaching facilities specifically, it is part of that little paperwork that you sign in, your intake paperwork, that says, a student may be present. However, you can work with the staff and work with them as far as how many students. Maybe you wouldn't like to be, in active labor and 6-7 students are rolling in this little posse and looking down at your nether regions. Maybe you don't want that, but you're okay with 1 or 2. You might be okay with a visual only student. You might not be okay with a student checking you, and that's perfectly fine. You decide and we work with you. That's definitely a big one that I would encourage. One of the things that I found to be very interesting as far as the women that I worked with in my clinicals was them not knowing what they wanted to do after birthing the baby. Do you want immediate skin to skin contact? I mean, do you want delayed cord cutting, or clamping even? So typically when your baby's born, they will clamp the cord, but I know that some women and some other birthing people would also like to keep the cord attached until it stops pulsating, until they have actually delivered the placenta. It's up to you to decide that, but you also do have to make sure that the facility that you're birthing in can support that, because facilities do have their own policy. So it's definitely an open conversation that you would want to have. Do they do lotus births? Lotus births would mean baby is attached with kept attached to their placenta for as long as it takes to dry up and fall off. Speaking of placenta, another question, what do you want to do with your placenta? Do you want to do the placenta smoothies? Do you want to dehydrate it and take it as vitamins? Placentas are chock full of pretty much every nutrient that you've ever given your baby. And again, now that's coming out of your body, so you are going to be low on those nutrients also. So I've heard of many women ingesting their placenta to help with hair growth, to prevent any hair loss that's associated with those drops in estrogen and different hormones that are going to be dropping off after or during the postpartum period, I should say. I think I briefly touched on it, but also, pain preferences. Do you want an epidural? Do you want it natural? Do you want it natural as in no epidural? Or do you want it natural as in, no medication whatsoever? Because there are other pain medications that they can provide for you. Definitely is considered a facility to facility difference between what they can provide, but there's other types of pain management that they can offer. And so definitely see what your facility can provide or alternatives that they can provide. So as far as an epidural, something I actually learned about very recently was the walking epidural, which is kind of like a low dose epidural. So it takes kind of the edge off, but you still feel your pain, you still feel contractions, but a little bit more palatable, and you don't get that same confinement to the bed. You can still move your position freely. You can still walk around. So it's called the walking epidural. But again, facilities differ. So you definitely want to find out, what does your facility do. Another thing for post birth would be, what do you want to do about your feeding preferences? Are you interested in breast or body feeding? Are you interested in formula feeding? Are you interested in exclusively breastfeeding or body feeding? Or are you okay with doing both formula and breast? So these are situations, they all come with, again, their own pluses, pros and cons. They're going to be with anything that you can think of. But before giving birth is the time to think about it. Putting it in your birth plan is the time to think about it. Not after you're so tired, you've been pushing out a baby for, or you've been laboring for 12 hours, you're just finishing active labor, and they're asking you to latch your baby, but you don't have any desire to have your baby latch. You would just like to go straight to formula feeding. And that's okay. I would say that I prefer breastfeeding for my patients, but obviously I'm going to support them in anything that they would like to do. As long as baby's fed and mom is comfortable, I'm going to support it. So there's no reason for your care team to encourage you to latch your baby right in the first moments, after birth, if you have no desire to do that. But then it also gives them the chance to have a bottle ready, because that first feed is really important for regulating blood sugars and things of that nature. And then also about baby, what immunizations do you want to give? Are you okay with getting or do you understand why the antibiotic goes over the eyes when they're first born? What about vitamin K, if they need that vitamin K shot or anything like that? You want to start having those, you want to start thinking about that, and also asking your questions. The biggest thing about the birth plan, and the reason why it's so important, the reason why I was so shocked that all those women, all those people did not have a birth plan, is because that's how you cultivate that understanding, that application. You may not even know what questions you have, but being able to work through a birth plan, now you know what questions to ask, and your provider is able to assist you in that way. I am so keen on everything that you can possibly squeeze out of your provider. Squeeze it out. The reason that we're there is to be a resource. And I know for my future patients, I am definitely such a proponent of education. I want you to know as much as I know. Obviously, you don't have to memorize it all, but if you know, then you're more likely to take advantage of things that are going to help you, and feel comfortable coming to me when you don't know something. If you know that you can have a relationship with your provider where they're going to ask, where they're going to accept all your questions regardless of how stupid or how difficult or how many times they've heard it, that's the kind of relationship that cultivates that understanding and that knowing and that confidence in taking care of your own health and being an active participant in your own health. And when you're an active participant in your own health, then your child, your baby that you just birthed, that you just went through this whole process with, will see that, and they'll recognize that, okay, I have to take more of an active approach in my health as well. And again, babies, bumps, and becoming is all about becoming a better society for the future. Having healthier moms, having healthier babies, and ultimately a healthier future. So I hope you had a great time listening to me talk for the last however long. But if you have any further questions, please feel free to email me, leave a comment, like this channel, share it, subscribe, turn on your notifications, all that stuff that they say. I'm not the best at these closings, but I just truly hope that you enjoyed this content, and I'll see you around again for more content.